Okay, you can go.
Hey, it's Martavis Bryant, a.k.a. Morning McBride, and you listen to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
We're back.
We are here.
It's December.
What?
There's a chill in the air.
Wow, it really is December.
It's
It was
like
frigid.
70 out.
Arizona.
You don't know it's December, Jason, and I was saying I know because I had to hide 3 stupid elves yesterday.
You do 3?
I have 3 children.
I have 3 children. I hide 1. Buddy the elf.
I don't do this stupid thing you're talking about.
I know.
Well, you're lucky.
You got no joy.
Are you talking about Elf on the
Yeah,
shelf?
I am.
What do you have to do? You have to hide them?
Yes.
I don't even know how this game is played. Do you take a picture of them?
No, you hide them, and the children wake up and find them, and they are filled with such cheer. So in the morning when you wake up, it's kind of worth it.
So they look around the house. They try to find them.
But the point of it is you try to set them up.
The
at least
the problem.
internet.
The problem.
The internet shames you.
The problem is the wives.
Yes.
Because the wives, they can't just hide this guy up on a high spot.
That's
They've
my
got to
move.
make an elaborate thing showing how mischievous these elves are. And I think my elf last night had a bag of donuts and was wearing a donut as a hat and he wrote a letter to the kids.
I feel so happy that that my family does not do this.
Yes. Well,
nor will it ever do this.
the new elf Farfanugan was introduced to
Ooh.
the family.
That's a good name.
Football.
Is that who played quarterback for the Browns last night? Farfanugan?
Might as well have been Farfanugan.
Sorry, I'm sorry that we teased the great Schaub-McCown battle when it was really the great Schaub-Austin Davis battle. I feel really bad to not have seen that coming. Welcome to the show. We are the Fantasy Footballers, and we are back yet again. It is Tuesday. It is our Waiver Wire episode. We're going to fill you in with all the news and notes, injury reports, all of that stuff. We got our Review-a-saurus on today's show. We've got our full stream ahead, our streaming quarterbacks. That worked mighty fine last week, streaming Mr. Matty Snapback.
Oh, yes.
Worked out good for me. And we're getting close to fantasy playoffs, so I'm sure we'll talk about that. I have a question kind of relating to playoffs and your opponents, so we'll go through that. If you want to follow us, we're on Twitter at the FF Ballers. You can follow Mike at FF Hitman. You can follow me at Andy Holloway. You can follow Jason at JasonFFL. And you can check out our website, thefantasyfootballers.com, if you have a question, an urgent type of question.
If you have elf on the shelf needs.
Yeah, if you need some sweet ideas, you can visit Mike's Pinterest page where he's posting. No, you should do that.
My goal is just how high in the air can I get them to rest.
Oh, yeah?
Like on a ceiling fan, on a ceiling light.
Yeah.
That's my go-to move.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. And you have 3 of them you have to hide every day?
That is correct.
That's
So
silly.
just doing the math, this is up till Christmas?
Yeah. And
So there's 75 locations you have to find? Is that accurate?
Foot Clan, my rankings may never ever come out again because I'm too busy hiding elves in my house.
Yeah. December's a tough month for Mike. Burdens. All right. Hey, let's get into the quick question. I'm actually changing it up from the one that I wrote down here. What is your guys' philosophy on defensive waiver wire moves for the playoffs? Because today's waiver wire day, they'll probably go through in the morning. You are, for most people, this next week is the final regular season week, which means playoff positioning. And also, you kind of might see what your matchups are going to be. So what is your philosophy on signing guys to keep them away?
I think obviously it is case by case.
Scott
dependent.
Chandler, for example.
No, I that's what I was going to bring up. I will be doing this in our league today. So Andy and I, Foot Clan, in our league of record, I'm the number 1 seed right now. Just got to throw that out there.
I know.
It has no bearing on this story.
It does, because if Andy beats me by more than 37 points in a head-to-head matchup this week, he overtakes the bye week, and I fall from 1 to 3. So I need to make sure he doesn't have a big boom game, and he just lost Gronk.
So you're saying you might lose the 1 seed to a team that started 1-4? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. You don't win championships at the draft.
#Andy37.
Yeah. So
Get that 37.
So
Get that 37 points.
In a situation where you've got a heads-up matchup that something as big is going to happen. I think that it's wise to look at your opponent and go, oh, he needs a blank, and there's only one blank out there, or something like that. If that situation exists, you'd be foolish not to try to swoop in and make his team worse. But, of course, you don't want to do it at the expense of your own team and drop someone very valuable for you in your playoff run. So you've just got to use discernment in there.
And it's difficult sometimes when if there's many options, but this is a very specific instance where Scott Chandler, as we'll talk about, is clearly the tight end to pick up, in my opinion. So if I can, in Jason's situation, I would do the same thing. I would spend some quiche, and I'd get Scott Chandler on my team as long as I have someone I can drop.
Andy's out of fab.
Yeah, there's enough horrible tight ends. I'll end up with the horrible.
That's what
one.
I'm saying.
Yeah,
So
you'll have Vance McDonald, and he'll put up 30.
There's
on me.
plenty of options, but when sometimes there's a very specific number one option that you should grab.
What about defenses?
I have currently 2 defenses on my roster. Almost every single playoffs I will have multiple defenses on my roster.
Part prevention, part matchups.
Yeah, and so I have about two weeks ago I started looking at them, just kind of figuring out who I wanted to have. Just for matchups of 14 through 16. So I kind of got those lined up. With I had added the Texans, and then I had another defense that I really liked. And then a Christmas miracle happened. I should say a Thanksgiving miracle happened on the day of Thanksgiving when Andy dropped the New York Jets for me. It was a glorious moment, and I swooped them up to play against Tennessee in Week 14.
One of the things that's annoying about playing with Mike is knowing that Mike would end up with the Jets. Even though we have 11 other people in the league, I had to drop him. I had to sign Matt Stafford, which I'm fine with, but it's unfortunate that the other people couldn't keep him away from you. So, all right, every week we like to take a second and thank the Foot Clan for their reviews on iTunes and everywhere else that you're listening to the show. They really help the show, and they're great to read. They're very entertaining, and so we're going to read one of them right now.
Reviewasaurus Rex.
This one comes in from Carger18, number one source for everything fantasy. He or she says, I absolutely love these guys. They give carefully explained and thought out advice that is the perfect complement to my own ideas. Only discovered them a month ago, and I can't wait to go through the prep and draft process with them next year. Best combination of humor and insight you'll find in the fantasy world. Thank you so much for all your great content. No, thank you, Carger18. Thank you.
Man, Carger 1 through 17 really snaked you.
Yeah, Carger18, though. Very nice review. Very much appreciated. And we look forward to the draft and the prep process, too. It's such a different the season's great. Obviously, we get to watch the games and we get to review the games and give you, you got waivers and everything else. But the prep time is special, too. It's unique. We get our preseason rankings going, get you ready for your draft. There are a lot of Oreos to be eaten in the draft season, so Jason obviously loves that time of year, and so very much appreciated. Thank you for the review. If you enjoy the show, that's a great way to support us. So let's go ahead and get into the news.
News and notes from around the league.
It was it's so cold out. I was a little slower to the draw there on the button on the drop. So. All right, let's talk about Rob Gronkowski.
Okay.
What's the latest?
The latest I'm hearing, I believe it was Adam Schefter was reporting that he's likely to miss a couple weeks. Because the MRI revealed that it's a bruise, and apparently nothing's really torn. I don't know because the word strain keeps getting used sometimes. It's hard to really know exactly what is wrong with his knee. What we know is that it's not a season-ending injury, which is great news for the fantasy football and real football.
It's better
community.
news for the real Patriots.
Yes.
It's not the best news for fantasy owners because, so maybe he misses this week. It's not playoff week. Maybe he misses the next week. I would say it's probable. And if he doesn't, then what kind of limitations do you have on him? Is he going to basically – because if he's starting – you're not playing Rob Gronkowski, right?
Correct.
So you can get roped into a bad play.
And so the Patriots are in the playoffs, but they are, I believe, one game at the number one seed because the Bengals have 2 losses, correct? We should verify that. But I'm pretty sure the Bengals only have 2 losses. So they'd only be 1 game back, which means that the Patriots do need to win.
Aren't the Broncos in that same situation?
Oh, yeah.
Because
you're right. Yes,
because they
the Broncos,
just upset them?
Yeah,
Broncos are 9-2.
in my head,
the Bengals
Broncos
are
are
9-2.
So
and the Patriots are 10-1.
So the Patriots do need to win. It's not they can't just say, okay, we're locked into this seed. They're going to want to have home field advantage, so they
Thank
will want to
goodness.
win. But they also know, I'm sure, that they can't win in the playoffs and get all the way through the Super Bowl without Gronk. So they have to be smart with this injury and let it be healed before he goes out there if there's further risk of injury.
So I want to put a lot of our tight end waiver wire time into kind of figuring out who Gronk owners need to sign and who would be a good selection for them. Chris Johnson.
Who?
Fractured. Now, see, it's written in here, fractured fibula.
I thought it was his tibia.
Yeah, I heard tibia as well.
Yeah.
So injury for Chris Johnson, reported 6 to 8 weeks, probably not playing another down for the Cardinals this year. Go ahead.
How's Andre
Oh.
Ellington's toe? How's that doing?
He's
It's
got
turfy.
turf toe for
It's
Andre
turfy.
Ellington. I was setting you up, and
I
then
know.
you went and talked about
Well,
Andre
we-
Ellington.
Well, we
Because
got to
we
talk
have-
about that first,
You got to
right?
lead up to it, my man.
So
Andre Ellington, turf toe.
is that? Can you just play on that?
Not likely. Not Andre Ellington likely. You can play on it. It's a pain tolerance issue. It's often multi-week.
And
So
there's one man left standing
Oh,
in the Arizona Cardinals backfield, and his name has a little tune, and it goes, David Johnson.
Oh yeah.
it's David Johnson. His time has come.
Johnson.
Somehow,
Yeah.
you two are enjoying yourselves very much, and you should be, because David Johnson has risen the depth chart on pure skill.
Hey,
He's shown enough skill
Yeah.
to merit it, and now he gets it in an even better way because there's nobody behind him.
David
Well,
Johnson is the
I mean, there will
number
be
one waiver wire pickup
Absolutely.
by far this week. David Johnson will start next week for the Cardinals. He will share some time with Stephen Taylor because that's just what's going to happen. You saw some snaps for Stephen Taylor last week, and they're not going to give the rookie all the snaps.
they'll pick somebody up too. I mean,
Yep.
Kerwin Williams will probably be back on the team in a couple hours.
So that's the latest on Ellington and Chris Johnson. Let's talk about Martellus Bennett. He is practicing, but he hasn't really done much for owners lately. Chris Mortensen reports Peyton Manning isn't expected back anytime soon.
That's weird.
He was wearing a cast for the plantar fascia.
Fasciitis.
Yeah,
And we've talked about this a lot of
around the studio.
What are the Broncos going to do with? I mean, you have Brock Osweiler coming off of 2 big wins. Now he's not being an elite quarterback, but what he has done is not turn the ball over, and because he's athletic and he can get that run game going. And we saw the last 2 weeks the Broncos running game has been fantastic with Hillman 2 weeks ago over 100 yards. C.J. Anderson this last week had a monster game. What do the Broncos do? Because they can't run that offense with Peyton Manning, and Peyton Manning is turning the ball over more than he's throwing touchdowns.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to what we said on the show before, at least my opinion on it, which is if you believe that Peyton Manning's struggles were very related to his injuries, then you bring Peyton Manning back and you put him in a position to succeed when he's healthy. If they don't believe it has anything to do with all the injuries, then you're talking about a different situation, and you could see Peyton Manning under the guise of injury kind of not playing the rest of the season.
I think he's
even
injured the rest
still,
of the year.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen because Kubiak has his system that he loves to run that has to come under shotgun. I saw a stat this morning in the
You mean it has to come under center?
Yeah. Yes, correct. It has to come with the quarterback under center. In Brock Osweiler's 2 games under center, he has more as the starter. He has more snaps under center than all of the games Peyton Manning played combined.
Wow.
That's a different system, and it's the Kubiak system. So
And I believe Peyton will be back, and he'll be their playoff quarterback.
Yeah,
because he's Peyton Manning. And I want to go into the playoffs with the potential for upside versus kind of playing the backup quarterback role. I mean, Osweiler's done fine. And maybe that's all you need. Maybe you need Trent Dilfer with that defense.
Yeah, and that's what I think they
DeMarcus Ware will come back in a few weeks, so we'll see. All right, Jason Cole reports that Danny Amendola is set to return in Week 13 against the Eagles.
Glorious.
So that is very good news for Brady owners, certainly, and for Danny Amendola owners to see him come back. The Patriots the Patriots are humorous to me. They cut Chris Harper yesterday.
Yeah, get out of here.
Brutal.
After he muffed the punt. So, goodbye.
Sending a message.
We don't need wide receivers here.
Man,
We're the Patriots.
We're good to go.
Everybody's injured, and they've got their rookie they draft. You got a bad play? Get out of here.
Honestly, I think what they said to themselves is, I'd rather start Brandon Bolden on the outside as a kind of jerry-rigged wide receiver than I would Chris Harper when you make a mistake like that. That honestly, if Harper didn't muff that punt, they win the game.
Absolutely.
Because that changed the momentum. They were up 2 scores. It gave them a short field. So, harsh, though, man. Harsh. Colts, Ahmad Bradshaw, season-ending injured reserve for the 3rd consecutive year. Wrist injury, no longer the handcuff for Mr. Frank Gore. And a report came out yesterday saying Frank Gore was beat to hell, I believe.
Beat to crap.
Beat to crap.
Beat
Yeah.
to crap.
So,
And he looks like it. He's running slow, and I think he's.
I was going to say, give me 30 seconds on the Colts backfield.
The Colts backfield right now is not looking too good. The nice thing is you get the workload. They are dedicated to running the ball, especially with Hasselbeck right now, but they're not running it well because Frank Gore is beat to crap, and so he's running like that.
How about a matchup against the number 1 run defense
There
in
you go.
Pittsburgh this week?
And so it's a bad time. I think that as the season goes on, they'll give enough rest to Frank Gore during the week that he'll get back to health, but I don't like his matchup this week. I don't think you need to handcuff him. If you did, it would be
Boom Heron.
Boom Heron.
Back again.
I think you should.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you should. We saw Boom Heron have some mighty fine fantasy weeks when he was the main guy last year. Not necessarily because he's the best runner in the world, but he's great in the passing game.
All right, let's get over to the Dolphins. Dan Campbell, also known as Guns Mahoney to Jason. Rishard Matthews fractured multiple ribs this past weekend. He's not very unlikely to play this week, which means Davante Parker's going to have another opportunity. We'll get into Davante Parker in the waiver section, but he had 10 targets this past week, so you need to be aware of him. And then this is kind of news for the defense owners. I've been recommending the Chiefs. I have the Chiefs as my only defense right now heading into the playoffs and very confident with them. But Justin Houston's down with a sprained PCL now and is going to miss multiple weeks, which is devastating. I mean, he is the pass rush equivalent, the defensive changer.
He's the J.J. Watt.
He's the J.J.
Chiefs.
Watt, and he's the leading sack. I think he's the sack leader right now, or was before last week.
Yeah,
so
and was last year. That's a huge blow.
He's what changes
to
their
a
secondary to
fantasy-
be okay.
Yeah, fantasy defense, especially that, when you look at fantasy defenses, I think the number one thing you look for is sacks, the potential to sack,
Sure.
because it's guaranteed points, it causes turnovers, it just leads to everything else. So that's what you look for, and that's gone. So that's a huge blow for your team, Andy. Unless I drop the Rams, which I might do, you can pick them up. They've been stinky. You're probably gonna or people that have the Chiefs.
I'm gonna have to keep my eyes open.
Yeah, and stream week to week because you're going to have guys like the Miami Dolphins who are playing against Pick Six City in in Matt Schaub this coming week. So you just stream your different options. The waiver wire is really what you're going to need to look at, and that's my favorite segment of the week is the waiver wire that we are about to get to. But before we get to that, we want to thank today's sponsor, Harry's. Harry's.com. You've heard us talk about Harry's.com. We personally use that for razors. I know all three of us have a beard, and people are like, "Wait, what?" Yeah, we shave our neck. We're not monsters here like Mike.
We're not barbarians.
We
some
shave,
of us
and
are.
we actually got a Christmas edition of their kit that is very nice. They've got a peppermint face wash. It is
refreshing.
delightful. It is wonderful. I highly recommend it. It's the holiday season. You can get it for yourself. You can get the best razors imaginable for your friends, for your family, a white elephant gift exchange. There's any reason to do it. Here's what you need to do. You go to harrys.com and you enter our promo code footballers, and Harry will give you $5 off your first purchase. They have a kit. It's $15 normally, so we're talking $10. It comes with a razor. It comes with 3 blades. It comes with moisturizing shave cream and other goodies. It is a wonderful Christmas present. How much is shipping, Mike?
I believe that it's free.
It's free.
Free
And you can-
$99.
So you need to do this soon to get it by Christmas for the holidays. Go to harrys.com, enter promo code footballers, and start shaving better today.
Love it.
Put me in, coach.
All right, let's talk waivers this week. There are some big names out there. We'll get to David Johnson. He's kind of at the top of the list because of opportunity, the team he's on, and the workload that's coming his way. But let's talk wide receivers right now. I want to start in San Diego. You saw a big bounce-back game from Phillip Rivers this past week, which had to encourage both Phillip Rivers owners and owners of any wide receiver there. But the guys at the top of my list are Stevie Johnson, who for a third consecutive week had 7 receptions. This time he got a touchdown, 7 for 92 and a touchdown. And then I want to just speak briefly, deeper leagues, about Dontrell Inman. So what are your thoughts on these two guys? Stevie Johnson, rest of the season, is a wide receiver
2.
Yeah, low end 2. And I think it's a reliable low end 2. Like you said, 3 weeks in a row with 7 receptions. The reason he's on here, now he's owned in most leagues, but there's still almost 30% of ESPN leagues that have him on the wire. And he is a guy that's a plug-and-play, startable guy. You need a guy that you know isn't going to go out and score 4 total points. That's going to be Stevie Johnson. If he gets in the end zone like he did this last week, he'll give you a good game.
And for Inman, if it's a deeper league, sure, I think he's worth an ad just because the Chargers, though they insist on running continuously with Melvin Gordon, they really get everything done through the air with Phillip Rivers, and Inman's on the field a ton, just like Stevie Johnson. So he's not a bad option, in my opinion.
All right, so talk to me about Stevie versus like Kamar Aiken. Aiken had a good game last night. They both are kind of reliable, not special, not elite. Would you rather have Stevie or Aiken rest of the season?
I'd rather have Stevie just because it's Phillip Rivers versus Matt Schaub, where Kamar Aiken is still a solid pickup if he's around and people still haven't picked him up, which there's leagues where they haven't. But we saw last night that he's still going to get the targets. Unfortunately, the Ravens can't play the Browns every single week, so you won't see those wide open where there's no one within a 30-yard radius of Kamar Aiken. But he's still going to get a ton of targets. A ton of opportunity.
Yeah, and it was nice to see Schaub. You know, you don't know when a new quarterback comes in, who's he going to target? Is he going to use Betty Crockett Gilmore, which unfortunately he didn't. The first play of the game comes out, hits him. I'm like, oh, yeah. And there you go.
That was it.
I think he got 2 more tiny passes late in the game. But it was nice to see Kamar Aiken.
Tiny passes.
I know. I'm visualizing that too.
The one thing I like more about Kamar Aiken than Stevie Johnson, and I do agree I would rather have Stevie Johnson because his baseline and his quarterback, but Kamar Aiken at least is used a little bit more downfield. Stevie Johnson doesn't normally get used as much on longer. We've seen 7 receptions in 3 back-to-back games, and with the exception of this week with 92, he's had about 10 yards a catch. So the guy that I'm excited about, can I talk about the wide receiver that I am most intrigued about on this list?
Sure.
Davante Parker. With Rashard Matthews out, and we've seen how valuable Rashard Matthews has been this year. He's been one of those guys that nobody really wants to believe in week after week after week after week because he's Rashard Matthews, and he was almost traded and cut before the year. But Davante Parker is coming into this year. Some people were talking about him hand in hand with Kevin White and Amari Cooper as the best rookie coming in. He was injured. He didn't get on the field much this year, has, I believe, 4 back-to-back goose eggs because he wasn't used. But Rashard Matthews goes down this last week, 4 receptions, 80 yards, and a touchdown. And he's more the future. And so you want to talk about a guy that you can grab that maybe has a big potential to all of a sudden become a target that's used, and when that happens, he could break big games and score big points. That's a guy I would love to stash. Maybe.
But how do you stash at this point? Because that would be my question about him. You're not, unless you're in a dynasty league. Like, how can you feel confident?
Let's say
from a fantasy perspective, putting Davante Parker into a playoff line.
Let's say I grab him right now, and this week he comes out and gets 6 catches for 78 yards. Then the following week, after 2 back-to-back weeks with Rashard Matthews still injured, I'm absolutely fine putting him out there.
And they have a solid matchups coming up, the Dolphins. So they got Baltimore this week, the Giants the following week, the Chargers, and then the Colts in championship week 16. So they have a string of games where you can succeed.
If they just put him in Rashard Matthews' role, I think he outperforms what Matthews did, and he was a startable guy.
Yeah, And I mean, but we haven't seen it.
Yeah,
And so I guess depending on your need and your risk aversion, I mean, I'd rather start Stevie Johnson, Kamara Aiken.
Yes.
I'd rather start Doug Baldwin than Davante Parker. But I'm not saying you're wrong that he could become that. It's just so late in the season. I would have loved to see this happen 3 weeks ago and be the Odell Beckham, and maybe he could still do that. Maybe, to your point, I don't know if 6 for 78 is going to talk me into starting him, but if he came out and he caught 8 balls for 165 and 2 touchdowns,
sure.
All of a sudden you're like, okay, I'll just rush him in there because of the talent and opportunity. So it's a good point, and he's the most upside of any of these guys by far. So another guy worth mentioning, Doug Baldwin, I just said his name, 6 for 145, 3 touchdowns. Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson
is on a roll.
Yeah.
There's no other way to put it.
He's on fire.
He's on fire.
Well, we'll go. You got to go the NBA Jam rules. So he's got 2. So he's heating up.
He's heating up.
Does he
more and
catch
he's on
fire against the Vikings this week in Minnesota?
No. I don't think so. I do think Doug Baldwin is a good pickup, as much because Jimmy Graham is gone as the heating up of Russell Wilson. With Jimmy Graham gone, that's just more targets going elsewhere. I don't expect him to go to Luke Wilson at the same type and variety.
Don't you mean Luke
Wilson? That was funny. We couldn't. So we're putting our doc together yesterday, and we wanted to look up Luke Wilson's stats. And we're looking through our ESPN, and we can't find it. We're like, does someone have him on a roster?
He's in Matrixed, and he was out of the system.
He's nowhere to be found, and that's because apparently Luke Wilson spells his name with 2 L's. Who spells Wilson with 2 L's?
Luke.
Yeah.
His parents.
There you go.
His parents as well. Yeah, I didn't expect that. I had the same thing happen when I was putting some preliminary rankings together. I couldn't find him anywhere last night, and eventually noticed that he was in there. So
the last guy
we'll talk about him.
The last guy I want to mention is Ty Montgomery. He from Green Bay. He's still hurt. We're not sure if he's going to play, but
it's always good.
I believe. Well, I'm just saying that the opportunity will be there when he's back. The team has
desperate.
Devonta Freeman stinks.
Adams.
Well,
we've moved past.
Wow. That's I want to get
Freudian
both of those
slip.
quotes where you say it and you say it, and you both just put them together.
The team has gotten to the point. You even had McCarthy coming out and it's basically saying, Davante Adams, you stink. So if Montgomery's back, it wouldn't surprise me in the next couple games to see him overtake Adams. It's a long shot for sure, but maybe you're in that situation where that's what you need.
All right, running backs, the number 1 guy, David Johnson. He was 8 for 21 and a touchdown, 2 for 8 through the air. One of the things I like about David Johnson is he is a bona fide pass-catching running back. The Cardinals, when they had Chris Johnson and Ellington involved, they would bring Johnson in and run him on wheel routes for touchdowns. They'd run him on wheel routes for important plays. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, and the workload's going to be very good for them. So talk about his how much do you blow on him right now? I mean, everything, right?
I was talking to Jason about this. It has been madness, pure fantasy madness. The amount of running backs who are spend your entire budget on that guy, where you had Char West, he wasn't in everything, but he was spend a good amount because he has a great opportunity. Then you had D'Angelo Williams, who has been great. Rawls, Buck Allen. And now David Johnson. I mean, this is I believe this is why people like the 0 running back strategy, because running backs are going to get hurt. But I'm trying to remember. I don't recall chaos like this where top level running backs were approaching. We're not talking about a guy from like I can't think of a team right now, but a backup running back where situations like
Right.
He'll be a running back low end.
Well, Alfred Blue this year.
Okay, that's
a good example, right? Because you would have spent a few bucks on him, you wouldn't have spent your whole fab budget.
Where David Johnson, high-powered offense, high-powered player, spark scores, just freak athlete.
I don't know if it's still the case, but there was a time this year where he was the fastest measured player in the NFL on a single play.
On his kickoff return.
All right, I got trivia time for you.
Oh.
It's going to be real easy.
Oh.
What
David Johnson.
You are correct. What? I'll just say it then. David Johnson right now, of all running backs in the league, has the most fantasy points per attempt. When he
touches the ball?
When he touches the ball, he has the most fantasy points per touch. So
how responsible do you feel for the injuries to Chris Johnson and Andre Ellington? Because the running David Johnson refrain through the entire season.
Reaper has come.
It's only appropriate, right, that the kind of culmination of the entire season is now in the hands of David Johnson out of nowhere.
It's not just us. There's a lot of other experts who really like David Johnson.
I'm pretty sure we're the only ones that sing about him.
No, that's definitely not true in the sense that when you say we're the only ones, yes, if you're including the Foot Clan. But I get tweeted every time David Johnson touches the ball that they're singing David Johnson.
It's just funny, though. It's just funny that we're here in week 13 and David Johnson is ultra relevant again.
I am so happy that you guys have no fab money.
Yeah, that would be, well, speaking of another guy to spend some fab on, maybe. It's going to depend on practice reports. But let's move on to Spencer Ware. This guy has been ultra efficient. Last week had a huge game in limited work. This past week, 19 for 114 and a touchdown. I've said this before, Kansas City runs more touchdowns in than any team in football. So what do we do with Spencer Ware? Because he is a tough situation.
Yeah, his relevance is reliant on Char West. If Char West is going to
And they play the Raiders this week.
Oh, delicious. But if Char West is back, unfortunately, I think that Ware has to have earned playtime when Char West is back. So you've kind of got – now you have two guys where Charkandrick West was getting just all the volume before he went down with the hamstring. So even when he comes back, I think that Ware is going to eat into his
could be like a
workload.
Forte Langford situation.
Yeah, exactly. So but Ware, if West is out again, which I haven't read anything positive about his hamstring as of yet, he's still a great ad.
Yeah, I could see him starting and getting the whole workload this week.
A great short-term ad.
Yeah, short-term ad. But obviously, if you are the West owner, and Spencer Ware's out there, you got to bid a lot and grab him because while he's gone, you've got a stud. So
all right, what about Shaun, the only running back? So for the 49ers, the only running back in football this year to take every single snap from the running back position through an entire game. 15 for 51, 5 for 35 through the air, pulling the Darren McFadden stat lines for the 49ers.
Ultimate stinky fantasy trash.
Stinky volume play.
This is what you want. I would if I'm looking for a long-term solution, I have Draughn ahead of Ware.
Mm-hmm.
Because he just, like you said, every snap. The San Francisco, they say no one else on our team is good enough to bypass.
And honestly, he's looked okay. On the game film, he's looked kind of fast. I mean,
absolutely, I agree that he does pass an eye test, and just the volume of checkdowns from Blaine Gabbert is just so tremendous that you can't overlook it. I was able to get him. I mean, you had the chaos last week of waiver ads, and in a very competitive league, I snuck Draughn for $0 onto my team, and it was fantastic. And I'm very excited for that moving forward, just like I think everyone else should be. You don't like it, you aren't going to be happy about putting him in your...
He's the vegetable.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a vegetable on your plate.
I love it. He's a fantasy vegetable that is going to make your team healthy.
Yeah,
but
Julio might be the steak, but you need some vegetables on your plate.
That's maybe my favorite analogy.
And then you follow it up with some dirty cake. Jeremy Maclin back again, baby.
Gross.
All right. I'm going to throw out some more running back names. You guys tell me who you like, but these are some guys on the radar for the waiver wire. Theo Riddick, Amir Abdullah, Alfred Morris had a good game. Alfred Blue, so both Alfreds. Jay Ajayi, I don't know why that's so comical to me that I have two Alfreds on the team, but anybody there that you're really excited about? I mean, is Abdullah back on the radar? Are we back in is this the beginning of the season again? Abdullah David Johnson?
It could be. He's getting the workload. I mean, 16 carries. Yeah, we are very slowly warming up the Express right now. The Abdullah Express.
Dude, I got about 50 posters I need to send out once he starts playing well again.
Shoveling snow out of the way in front of it.
I mean, the Abdullah Express was in the station just covered in cobwebs and dust and spiders And we're rolling it out. We got the gate half open here for the Abdullah Express. And
I mean,
you want to know what
are
the
the
problem
numbers?
is?
16 for 63?
The problem for Abdullah is Theo Riddick.
Yes.
And the problem for Theo Riddick
is
Abdullah. They just it seems like, one of them is getting
With
all the
our
carries.
powers combined.
If we could get the machine from the movie The Fly. You guys familiar with The Fly?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We put Abdullah and Riddick in the same machine.
Ooh.
And we come out with
A guy that can both...
Abdullah Ramir. Then we have an ultimate running back.
So if you can only grab one of these guys, which one would you prefer to have on your team? The pass catcher or the...
Honestly,
PPR,
it's Riddick. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, standard, it's Abdullah.
Of all those guys, I think, honestly, I would rather have Alfred Blue right now. Alfred Blue, he's not sexy. We talked about him a minute ago. He's a guy like... he got when Aaron got injured.
He's like
don't
a
rush out to
fantasy
get
radish.
him. Yeah. He doesn't provide that many vitamins for your
Not
team.
that nutritious.
But he is clearly the guy that's being used there. He's getting volume. He gets the goal line work. So to me, I'm not super excited about any of those guys. But if Alfred Blue's out there, he's worth being on the team.
And for Morris, it's just as of now, it seems like he is the starting running back. Washington again proves that they just have no idea what they're doing. Of spinning round and round. The Matt Jones fumbles have forced the hand of Morris to be back in. And
they're
guy.
the division leader. They're going to be fighting the rest of the season. That's one thing we know about Washington is they're going to be competing, and they've got a Monday night game against the Cowboys without Tony Romo, so it's a very winnable game. One guy I should mention, if you haven't done it already, handcuff your Lamar Miller with Jay Ajayi if he's available in your league because they might go to a more hot hand approach with higher volume there, and you just want to have him on your team.
I agree. That was my next point. Was I think Ajayi needs to be added for Miller, not just Miller owners, but he is a great speculative ad in my opinion. I'm kind of got that bubble guts feeling for Lamar Miller, where the Dolphins might just completely look to the future. I talked about this yesterday.
Free agent,
and Lamar Miller's a free agent. We're not hearing anything about them re-signing him.
So dynasty leagues, Jay Ajayi, dynasty keeper league should be on your roster regardless.
He's already rostered in dynasty, but
sorry. I mean, like a keeper league. If you hold over 2 or 3 guys for the next season, you might want to add him the same way you'd add Rawls. I mean, obviously Rawls has relevance now, but those type of guys that looking into next season might be starting running backs.
Yeah, like Ajayi and Matt Jones, where the guys in front of them are just
they could be gone.
Yep,
Langford as well. All right, tight ends. Scott Chandler last week was 5 for 58 and a touchdown. He actually had the most targets, I think, for the tight end. 11 targets in all of football last week. Gronkowski set to miss this week. This is still maybe the trepidatious nature of the Patriots. I mean, I think Chandler could come out and block all game and get a catch. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all. And we need to make sure because we gave Scott Chandler all that love. I think if you're a Gronk owner, Scott Chandler is a great option to have because he's obviously going to fill in for the time that you need him. You don't have to worry about what time is New England playing to make your decision. You've got that in Scott Chandler. And specific for why I'm going to pick him up to snake against you is because you need a big boom game, and you've got Tom Brady.
He has the highest potential for that.
Exactly. So that's what I'm going to avoid. As far as him versus the other guys, I think he's in a pack of decent options for tight end this week. Who do the Patriots play?
Philadelphia.
Yeah, so I kind of like him a little bit more. I would put him first on my list of tight ends, but he's not David Johnson type. You don't need to go and drop a ton of fab on him.
So some other guys that are worth discussing, and this is kind of interesting. I looked at scoring leaders at tight end position this past week, and 5 of the top 10 in our league were unowned. Okay, so that doesn't necessarily apply to every league, but you're talking about guys like Vance McDonald. Zach Miller scored again. Kyle Rudolph had another solid game in terms of targets and catches, 7 for 53. There are some names, I believe Ryan Griffin was one of them, and there were Cameron Brate from Tampa. Yeah. So this is one of those things where you're rolling the dice, right? You can roll the dice with Rudolph. You can roll it with Richard Rodgers, who right now seems like the one, or probably the only guy that Rodgers seems really like he wants to throw to in the red zone. So who is it? I mean, I like Rudolph right now because the target numbers for 2 straight weeks have been up, and they're playing a Seattle defense, which, it's Seattle. Well, Seattle's not good against the tight end.
Yeah.
Not at all.
And to me, though, it's old McDonald. Vance McDonald, you have a situation where Garrett Selleck, the other tight end, who they were kind of siphoning away from each other, he went down in a heap. I think it was an ankle injury, and it looks like he's going to miss some time. So it's the Vance McDonald show, and Blaine Gabbert has shown that he wants to throw to the running back, and he wants to throw it to the tight end. So I really like him. If you miss out on Scott Chandler and you can get Vance McDonald for very cheap, I think you are in a good situation. And Vance McDonald takes on
the Bears.
Chicago, which
they've been pretty good against.
They've been okay.
The Vance McDonald thing is interesting because the only thing that's giving me hesitation, and maybe it shouldn't, but I think he's had like career high games in back-to-back weeks. Like his career high was last week, and then he passed his career high, which is good, right? Like that's
it's
great.
The situation of
So he's got to do it again.
Are you okay over there?
I'm dying.
You sound like Batman. Swear to me.
Yeah, that
Sorry,
was.
I'm back.
But he's had his career highs.
Do it again.
Because the offensive situation has changed in San Francisco.
You're right. You're right.
I mean, so they're a brand new team essentially right now. You have with Draughn.
And he should be a lot
Gabbert.
cheaper than other guys that you'd be competing
Absolutely.
for.
And you didn't just lose Selleck. When you're talking about the season, they traded Vernon Davis away, who was their first.
Yeah,
excellent
And then
point.
there was Selleck, and then I'm gonna die.
What is
What
my
is
voice?
going on with your voice?
I don't know. I think it's
Just quit smoking.
You need your fantasy vegetables.
All right, good thing this show's almost over here. All right, so what about Zach Miller? Zach Miller's still he's still involved.
If
Martellus Bennett's
if
been
Bennett is
banged up.
out, then Miller is a fine play to me. I mean, he only had 2 catches. He got the touchdown. Jay Cuddy seems to be looking for him. Jason is in the
he's
corner.
coughing in the corner of
He
the
looked
room.
like the Blair Witch Project behind us, putting himself in the corner.
I hope the first word out of his mouth. How you doing, Jay? Why don't you talk a little bit about some defenses you like this week?
okay.
Streaming defenses.
All right, streaming defenses. I don't know what you just said, Mike, but I'm gonna go.
I think there's something about Blair Walsh.
So I actually like Washington at Dallas. I think their defense has
too.
been pretty good, and Tony Romo won't be there.
He'll be there
Sure.
in a sling.
But if you're looking for, let's say, we like Houston, we like Minnesota, they're good, but they're probably rostered. If you're looking for a team that is definitely on waivers, look for the team playing against the Ravens because Matt Schaub likes to throw pick sixes. That is pretty much now what he is known for, and touchdowns are worth points.
Dolphins.
So that's right, the Miami Dolphins.
Chicago plays San Francisco at home, and Chicago's competing for a playoff spot. So that is a very and
like that one
their
too.
secondary has been so good. It's going to be an interesting game to see if they can shut down that 49er offense like everybody else has. They've been. I mean, I think we looked yesterday. San Francisco's in the bottom 3 in terms of
Everything?
yeah. Well, okay.
Sorry.
We're
San Francisco
NFC
fans.
West fans. We're not being kind right now. Gabbert's looked capable-ish.
He sure has.
So I like the Bears' defense this week. Is there anybody else that stands out for people starting?
I mean, it's for me. It's.
Are you still confident with the
Houston.
Chiefs in Oakland?
No. We saw the Chiefs at the beginning of the year when the defense was very, very bad, and the Chiefs were a plus matchup for quarterbacks and wide receivers because the secondary is a little bit rough, and if they can't get that pass rush with Houston, that could be a very trap situation for you.
Yeah, actually, Oakland, I believe, scores the 8th most points against fantasy defenses, so they have not been a good matchup.
Derek Carr, I have stated I'm buying into Derek Carr, and the Texans, at least in ESPN, are available in more than 50% of leagues.
Yeah,
and so they are a defense on the rise with a pretty solid schedule into the playoffs. Week 14 is the Patriots. You probably want to avoid that. But then you have the Colts and the Titans for the rest of the time. And they have Buffalo this week, who is hit or miss with Tyrod Taylor.
All right, that does it for our waiver section. Let's go ahead and move it on.
Full stream ahead.
All right, full stream ahead. We're picking some fantasy quarterbacks we like this week. Let's do it. Mike, who's your fantasy streamer at the quarterback position this week?
There are a lot.
Yes.
A lot of great fantasy streaming options this week. But I specifically picked this guy because I personally am riding him. I am a Phillip Rivers owner. I am not going to play Rivers against Denver, partially because I need a huge game. If I don't know if we talked about my situation of I'm in a very similar boat with Andy where if I win and I make up ground of a lot of points, I can sneak into a bye week. So this week I'm going with Ryan Tannehill at home against Baltimore. And we saw the Baltimore defense is really not improved, that you can still get it done. McCown was having a pretty solid game until he went down with the collarbone, so McCown, we didn't even really mention this, but it looks like McCown might have broken his collarbone.
Yeah.
He came out and he threw another pass. That guy is a beast.
And he's now completed the set. He's broken every bone in his body in football.
I mean, you saw him just he couldn't even make it off the field, and I don't blame him for if you really broke your collarbone and you went out there and threw a pass, that is ridiculous. But
you
Ryan,
like Tannehill.
Ryan Tannehill at home against Baltimore. I think it's a situation where Tannehill can really succeed.
All right, I'm gonna stick with the Ryans, and I'm not going Matt Ryan.
Yeah,
For sure.
eat it, Matt.
Great.
Ryan.
Now I have to go Matt Ryan.
I'm going to go with Ryan Fitzpatrick this week. Ryan Fitzpatrick has been solid this year. He pretty much throws for 2 touchdowns every week. This last week, he threw for 4 touchdowns. But in the last 7 weeks, with the obvious exception of when he barely played in the game and went out with an injury, he's only had 1 game where he threw 1 touchdown. Everything else is 2 or more. He's been putting up plenty of yards. Last week against Miami, 277 yards, 4 touchdowns. And this week, he faces the New York Giants, who have a very susceptible secondary. They're 27th in the league as far as points given up to the opposing quarterback. So it's a good matchup for a guy that's been playing great. You've got Eric Decker and Brandon Marshall. Just you want a quarterback that has weapons that can find a touchdown, even when it's not him doing it. And Ryan Fitzpatrick has been known to run a touchdown in. I mean, he's got 30 yards, 20 yards, another 30. He runs for 20 or 30 yards a game. So,
yeah, I don't mind that one at all. He had a big game last week. I'm gonna go. I went back and forth amongst a bunch of guys, and I'm really going out on a limb here a little bit because he's just not been consistent. But Alex Smith, I'm going to go with him, even though he's traveling to Oakland. Oakland is 27th against fantasy quarterbacks. I like the trajectory of Smith and his passes from last week where he actually aired it out a little bit.
Yeah.
And, use Kelsey in the seam routes, use Macklin down the sideline and let him go make a play. Depending on the running back situation, I just think Smith is going to have a pretty good week. I think 2 touchdowns is in the cards for him with the potential for a lot more. He had 30-plus points last week. And so I'm going to go with Alex Smith this week and take a shot.
I love that. And speaking of, Ryan Fitzpatrick, he runs for 10, 20, or 30 yards.
Yeah, man.
But Alex Smith, listen to this. His last 4 weeks, he's run for 35 yards, 33 yards, 33 yards, and 76 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a guy that's getting you a baseline of half a touchdown, or if you're in standard scoring, almost, the equivalent of a touchdown a week, regardless of the touchdowns. So that's just...
And it's become part of what's made them successful because they're on a run right now. I mean, they're sitting in the wild card position, and if you watch the game, it's different. Before, Alex Smith was running out of kind of necessity. Now there are plays where he's doing the snap, one read, intentional run, the kind of like delayed draw, quarterback draw, and he's fast. He's really quick, and he's doing it intentionally. You can see what were the attempt numbers compared to the beginning of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in the beginning of the season, he had a game with
2 or 3.
3 for 15. Started the year with 2 games of 15 yards on the ground. The last 4 weeks, 5 carries, 6 carries, 7 carries.
That's great.
That's something that honestly, those are the same type of numbers you get from Russell Wilson sometimes. So I like Alex Smith this week, and it's a must-win game, divisional game against Oakland. It should be a good one.
And just because we were talking about all these other options, those are kind of like the guys that we're picking. But Jay Cutler at home against San Francisco, Marcus Mariota at home against Jacksonville.
Not bad.
Yeah, and Stafford, the Green Bay has not been great. Stafford is still I guess he's pretty owned after I'm looking at his numbers. But if you go through your waiver wire this week, there are a lot of available matchups.
Yep, I totally agree. So that does it for today's show. I want to invite everybody to go over to jointhefoot.com, join our fantasy football community. As we mentioned on yesterday's show, we are a year-round fantasy football podcast. We do not quit. No, we do not. No quit.
Yeah.
And so we rely on your support, and we love engaging you guys in all the questions and fantasy discussions. And we appreciate your support of the show. So check it out at jointhefoot.com. Any parting words, Mr. Elf on the Shelf? Good luck spending the rest of the day doing that, sucker.
Yeah, I have at least 3 hours that I got to commit.
You need to put all three in the toilet and then just flush.
That's not a bad idea.
Goodbye. Toilet.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at www.thefantasyfootballers.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.